Right, the reason for my making this film, Pig Business, and organising this event, is to have the experts, and I've got enough of them, I think, expose who pays the price of cheap pork. Now, the broadcaster, journalist, and author, John Humphreys, in his book, The Great Food Gamble, asks, has the drive for more and more cheap food proved a mistake? Many people agree. But how do we change direction? The journalist and author Felicity Lawrence, in a recent article, said, the nature of what we eat is determined by the concentrated power structures that control global food production. End quote. In the pig business, it is a handful of giant manufacturers, processors, caterers, and retailers. The only way these power structures can persuade us to buy their pork, compared to the pork from our traditional butchers and markets, is to make it cheaper. They achieve this by externalizing the true cost of production to the broader community, including the pigs who are raised in horrendous conditions. Tonight you will see how, in the name of free trade, we're all in fact subsidizing these power structures with our health, our environment, and our farmers' livelihoods. To win the global competition, the power structures buy from giant factory farms who have combed the EU to find countries with the best investment climates, the most compliant governments offering the most generous financial subsidies and fiscal incentives, as well as lowest wages, lowest environmental standards, lowest enforcement standards, lowest labour standards, lowest animal welfare standards, etc. And I filmed in Poland, so I know. But I won't mention any names of these companies for fear of defamation. So I've been down that road, and it's very sad how their power and wealth can achieve silence even in the House of Commons. I daren't say their name. As you can imagine, small-scale farmers have no chance to compete with these big guns in what admits to be an economy of scale. The question is, if we're given accurate information on the label, can we, through consumers' shopping power, reverse this race to the bottom? The voluntary country of origin label alone, as recommended by the government and opposition, ain't going to protect our pigs, our farmers, or our health. I believe we need mandatory country of origin and method of production labelling are both necessary to allow consumers to choose pork from extensive, not intensive farming systems, which treat the animals properly and don't pollute the environment. However, will people choose pig welfare over cheap prices? I actually think that most people would prefer that no one is allowed to eat pork from pigs that have been tortured. So I support David Cameron's suggestion to level the playing field for our farmers. And in my film, he says, just as we don't accept cars that aren't meeting our emission standards, so we shouldn't accept food that doesn't meet our welfare standards. As the meat itself is such a small cost for restaurants, sandwich bars, etc., why can't they supply pork products with freedom food labels? And why can't our government procure food for hospitals, schools, prisons, etc., by using pork from high welfare UK farms? At the Oxford Farming Conference, Hilary Benn suggested cooperation, not competition. So, yes please, Hilary, can you put the Economist's mantra of competition in the bin to protect people, pigs, and the planet? Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm going to invite Zach to say a few words as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, we have a huge number of experts here, and I don't want to tread on any of their toes, so I'm going to keep it very brief. I just want to say a big congratulations to Tracy. She's put a lot of her life into producing this film. It's already having an impact. It's a really important film. I think it's important because it doesn't reduce this huge, diverse problem down to one component. It doesn't just focus on stomach-churning cruelty, although it does. There's a lot of it, you'll see. It doesn't just look at the environmental impacts. It really broadens it up and joins the dots. And one of the things that it does best, I think, is it reveals that in this country there's a basic unfairness in our system. I mean, we have reasonably high animal welfare standards in this country because that's what consumers want, it's what we all demand. And yet, by not imposing those same standards on the stuff that we bring into this country, all we're actually doing is undermining our own farmers. And we can see from the statistics, our farmers are going out of business still at an alarming rate. And that's something I think we need to address. And we're not even dealing with cruelty by raising standards in this country alone, in isolation. Actually, what we're doing is we're exporting cruelty to other countries. We're not dealing with the issue. So I think that's a key component of this film. There's an awful lot we can do, and I think this again falls on the shoulders of politicians. There are things that can be done. I mean, we can demand honest labelling. Tracy just mentioned that, something which would result from political decisions that need to be made. We can say that if we're going to impose high standards in this country, we should impose the same standards on imports. And we're told all the time that that would breach EU law. Well, I'm not sure that's true. If it is true, well then the requirement on us, as far as I'm concerned, is to challenge that, to change it. That again is in the hands of politicians. But simply to say it's against the law is no longer good enough. And finally, well not finally, but another easy thing that can be done, which I think would change things dramatically, is to use our public money more effectively. We spend about £2 billion, as you know, on food for schools and hospitals and Ministry of Defence. That money is spent pretty indiscriminately at the moment. If instead we invested that money in our rural economy, with a bias in favour of local, sustainable produce, we flood the market with good quality food. We make food available, good quality food, available to people who currently don't have access to that kind of food. It's a key issue. And we'd be supporting the rural economy. £2 billion is not to be sniffed at. It will have a big impact on us. And it will do something towards improving our own food security, which is not a big issue politically at the moment, but it should be. And if it's not yet, it will be. If any of the trends, any of the predictions in relation to climate change are true, then we need to start thinking about food security. And even without climate change, we still have the fact that the population is growing, the world's breadbaskets are all without exception shrinking. Over 100 countries, according to the UN, have water shortages. Food security is an issue, and it needs to become a political issue. I said I wasn't going to speak too long, I already have, but I'm going to hand back to our chairman. Thank you all for coming, thank you, and congratulations to Tracy.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much. Now we'll proceed with the programme.